All right, I'm super excited to be welcoming my dear friend Alex Ontiveros to have an awesome conversation. And this is the Go Tiny Pro Show, part of the Go Tiny Academy. It's always great when you're friends that you've known for a long time who got you into the Tiny Home Industry Association on the board, who's pretty much certified our tiny home when we had lost all hope of having certification because our builder going out of business, and finally found Alex. And one thing's led to another. We've been dear friends for years now. And I even had a stint there for a while where I was doing consulting with Pacific West, helping them really organize the back end scenes of, the certification, how builders get involved. And I'm also an affiliate of Pacific West Tiny Homes. So if anyone wants to buy either a DIY certification or they want to buy and become a builder, a manufacturer, I can provide them those services for the same amount of money that Alex does, but then they also get me and consulting time. So the DIY is $2,000 and you also get 2 hours of consulting with me in addition to all the time you get with Alex. Same thing with the builders. Builders going forward and getting certification is pretty much the first thing they need after the trailer. It usually goes like this: who's the trailer manufacturer that I can order from? And then I need my certification. And, they really need to start from the get-go. You cannot do certification post. You got to do it from the get-go because they want to see how the whole home is built. That's the whole beauty of certification. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Alex, share who you are and how long you've been doing this and what makes you so excited about tiny homes.
Well, like Lindsay said, my name is Alex Ontiveros. I have been working in tiny homes for about 8 years now. And previous to this, I used to do inspections on RVs and park models, still with Pacific West Associates. And then we branched out to Pacific West Tiny Homes to service specifically this industry. A few of the things that I like about it is that this is not a one-size-fits-all type of industry. We do get to see some new and different things compared to our other side of the traditional RVs. I also get to learn a lot more about regulation, about placement, financing, and things that we just don't deal with on the RV side. And the biggest thing for me is I had been an educator in a previous life to this. So being able to educate people on the need for the certification, on everything that we are learning day to day, from how to finance them, where to park them, and how to talk to people to be able to get those things out to the consumers. That's one of the things that makes me excited about it.
Yay, wonderful. And what was your entry into the Tiny Home Industry Association? Because I know anyone here that's part of the Go Tiny Academy gets immediate membership for an individual membership for a year to Thea. And you're the one that tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, you want to join this thing called Tiny Home Industry Association? Back in 2019, when we had just hit the road. There was still sawdust, flying off of our tiny home as we descended into the Colorado Tiny House Festival, where that was the first time Alex and I actually met each other in person, other than on phone calls and on Zoom, mostly phone calls.
Mostly phone calls, yeah. I think we briefly met at a tiny house jamboree when we still had them in Austin, but we didn't have the communication that we have now. I think you were there, and I barely remember talking to you then, but after that,
that was our first event ever, 2017, Arlington, Texas, Tiny Home Jamborees, which they don't have anymore. That was first one. And that was pretty much a big festival. It's kind of like these festival organizers rise and then, like Tiny Fest, unfortunately, it's not over, but it's only gone down to one a year. And it just happened in San Diego. So Renee's taken a little break from doing all these festivals and then all these other home and garden shows. So there's many ways to connect more so, of course, I feel like on the West Coast and maybe in Florida, the middle of the country is largely, unconnected. But I do want to share on, I know this is part of the replay. So in the future, if this is passed, do look out on the website. Gather and Create festivals happen in Dallas, Texas on May 6th through the 7th. So super exciting that is a builder, Indigo River Tiny Homes. Are they one of your builders, Alex?
They
No?
are not.
Okay. Well, maybe they will become. We'll see. So not every builder is with Pacific West, but how many do you have?
We have across the country about 80 builders and about 10 internationally, in Canada, in Mexico, in Bosnia, China. That's about it.
So wait a minute, you fly around to all those places internationally?
I do not. So one of the things that we have been doing is we treat the builders here in what would be a staging point. And this is a common practice for the RV industry, that they will build most of the product overseas. And then it comes into the United States for a final review and a final testing round, which is where we do our certifications.
So here's at the very top on the 4 main reasons why certification is so important, right? This tag right here tells a lot. And what it really tells is mostly what we've talked about in the Go Tiny Academy. If you've watched the 4 types of tiny homes, we know we've talked about the 2 RV types, the NFPA and the ANSI. And then there's also the International Residential Code, which is a state building code, as well as the HUD certification. So that tag actually declares what this home is certified to. It's either going to be NFPA 1192 or ANSI 119.5. And that tag is sitting there on the side of our tiny home. And the reasons why, we wanted to make sure that someone else had ownership over our builder. Remember when we had gone with our builder being the builder and then they went out of business? So then really what we were most interested in is all the stuff at the time that hadn't even really come into play, like permit ready. At the time of our tiny home being built, I don't think anyone was actually certified for movable tiny homes. That was 2018. I think that was the first year in city of Fresno in 2018 got approved in the nation. Are you tracking me on am I right on that history here?
Correct. City of Fresno, I think City of Ojai was actually the first one to approve, and then City of Fresno went after, but both of them were either end of 2017 or beginning of 2018.
Okay.
We were told to get into the game in 2017. So.
Perfect. So what interesting timing that here I was, way before all these like benefits and features about the certification really came out. People were building them, I've seen my share. Oh my goodness, the amount of people that text me at home and like, what do you think? In fact, Andy, he'd approve of me talking about this. He got sent a picture and he went out and saw one. And the weirdest thing, had a door sticking out one side, like thing was not going to, I don't know, it was really weird. And that told me that that home is probably not certified. And when you are not certified, you get into issues where, are you sure it's safely built? If it's not certified, you're probably not going to get permits in the areas that are now becoming more and more tiny home friendly and approving NFPA and ANSI type homes. And then the other one is, what about resale? Let's say you have your home, you buy it now, and then in 5 years, this industry is going to become more and more educated, like it is already. What we're starting to see, actually, I'll talk about resale in a moment. And in addition to that, finance and insure. So we're going to go into each one of these and talk a little bit more. When we get to resale, I have a visual to show you, which is great. So Alex, tell us a little bit more about safely built. Take us through the steps as to when you're working with a builder or someone doing it themselves, what are the things that you're looking for as a certifier?
Okay. So the certification, what it is at its core is what you would get from an inspection from the county when you're building your own home on a foundation, or from the county or from the city. We want to make sure that your foundation is there, in our case being the trailer that you pick to do to do your build on. We want to make sure that your framing has been done correctly. We want to make sure that your electrical, your plumbing, propane if you're using it, and your life safety considerations are all taken into account and put into the build. There's a couple different ways to do it. The ones that we have been focusing on, as Lindsay mentioned, are the NFPA 1192, which is the RV code, or what everybody calls the RVIA standard, and the ANSI A 119.5, which is the park model code. The biggest difference between these two are the size of the units. Usually on an RV build, you would have something that doesn't exceed 320 square feet, and that it is road legal without requiring additional permits, which in our case here in the United States is 8.5 foot in width, 13.5 in height, and again, no more than 320 square feet. Park models under the ANSI code, you can go all the way up to 400 square feet, and you can exceed the height and width regulations. At that point, you're going to be looking for transportation into getting a permit or having a professional company do it. The biggest reason for now, well, I think that can lead us into the next one, but as far as the certification, we are, as I mentioned, we are the building officials. We want to make sure that everything that's been done has been done correctly, that it's not going to fall apart as you're going down the road, that it is built in some cases now to the requirements that different jurisdictions have to be able to get a permit, which is the next section of that.
Well, and actually, before you go on to that, let's really talk about some key things that, when you're in the industry and it's new, it goes from really DIY. Jay Schaefer, there he was in, early 2000s in the winter in Iowa with an RV, pumping in heating. Like, I'm in an RV right now as we're talking. And this little heater sitting over here really kicks out. But guess what? The entire envelope that I'm sitting in, which is not like a home like this, is like a leaky sieve. The walls are thin, all those things. Now, it's really great because I can fit in the back of my truck and I can zip on down the freeway really easily. It's lightweight for a reason, right? But I don't want to live in it with ongoing heat. And that's the same reason why Jay Schaefer was thinking, I'd like the home that's portable on wheels, but more built like a home. Enter the tiny home industry. He showed me his designs like in 2004. I was very honored to be like, yeah, those look great. But they were like, the cute little homes, really under 200 square feet. Obviously, we've gone much bigger now, but we want to keep the integrity and safety really important. So there's a couple factors, and I'm going to lead Alex into this. Egress windows, railings on lofts, not used to be the thing. What are some other key things that you're always looking at with builders? And oftentimes these builders will come from the regular house building industry. And they're like, if I can build a home, I can build one on a trailer, right? You've got vibration, you've got earthquake wind, earthquake conditions and hurricane winds constantly beating on this home, from vibrations, from all that. In addition to that, what products do we want to make sure we buy in the home that don't leak under vibration? So let's talk about those kind of key things that you're always looking for.
So one of the most important things that we look at is the life safety aspects of the construction. The biggest issue that we usually see on post-built homes or with new manufacturers that had the experience from being a general contractor building new construction is the emergency exit, the emergency egress window. We have a requirement for movable tiny houses that are certified to ANSI or NFPA to have an egress window out of any sleeping area, whether it's a loft or a downstairs bedroom. And the dimensions for that have to be 24 inches in width and 17 inches in height minimum. When you're building to these codes, even though you can still use the bigger windows like you would have on a home, sometimes we run into a couple of issues. The regular egress window that you would have on normal construction tends to be smaller than the 24 inches in width. So, and there's some jurisdictions that like that and prefer that and actually wrote it into the regulation to be able to get a permit to have a residential egress window. So that's one of the things that we start looking at in the beginning. The next one is railings, safety consideration on the railings and the loft. And those are clearly spelled out, whether it's California or anywhere else in the country. As far as the rest of it, you have markings that you have to have in your home, safety labels for people not to use their stoves for comfort heating, which was one of the big issues back in the day. All of these labels that are there because somebody did something that now you have to be careful about. We want to make sure that those are installed and that it's something that you have present in your mind. The other thing is having a smoke detector, having a CO detector. If you have any propane appliances in your home, inside the actual living space, we want to make sure that you have an explosive gas detector. And this is something that, Lindsay, you have experienced firsthand on the following part, which is the products.
Yeah, I bought quick and dirty. I bought the wrong product. I paid $600 for that on Amazon. It was an on-demand hot water system. Did not know that there were different ones that were RV certified, ones that could handle vibration, because at the factory, they put it literally under a vibration test. Ours was not. Guess what happened? Very soon into our travels, I started smelling propane because it was mounted inside our home. On some case, it was good that it was inside because I could tell it was leaking. If it was outside, I would never have known it was leaking. And many of them are mounted outside. I've actually seen a builder buy one like ours, and it's still on that home, and who knows if it's leaking. And I finally told the woman, I'm like, you better check that, because I talked to Bill. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's so important. And as buyers, we don't know this. If you're just trusting the builder. So I do want to go back to Lakeisha. Did you have a question? And then Bernice, I'll read yours. Oh, she used to be a field inspector. Yes, go ahead, Lakeisha.
Hello, thank you, Lindsay. I was trying to ask a question. Did you have, I guess I would say, a cheat sheet when you were talking about the permits? So do you have something like a cheat sheet for the cities or the counties, like what they are looking for when it comes to permitting? Since I know Riverside or different counties and different cities. So is there something or a standard that you have for different counties, or something that they're looking for as far as the permitting process? Because I haven't even gotten to that stage yet, but if there's something that I need to know before I get to that stage, because I'm thinking technically it'll start with the site plan and them approving that. So I kind of wanted to know, if you had something that, or like a checklist or something that, that I should look for.
So as much as we would love to have one for every single county and every single city that has an approval process, I think by far the only one that has made things absolutely clear has been the city of San Jose, that has everything spelled out that you need to be able to get a permit. We're working with other jurisdictions right now to hopefully get something that brings more clarity. But in general, it's because these are living documents that they're adjusting constantly. The best solution that we can give is talk to your locals and see exactly what they would like to have. Like I said, the egress window sometimes is the biggest consideration. And then from there, we can assist you with making a plan on what else you need to get to the point where they will issue the permit.
And let me kind of back into this a little bit differently. So Lakeisha, just so everyone knows here, as part of the academy, this is a briefing document. This is before a city or county will approve a movable tiny home under NFPA and ANSI. So we're always coming back to the 4 types of tiny homes: NFPA, ANSI, IRC, or HUD. Those are building standards. 2 are RV, 1 is state, 1 is national. It takes a while to get this stuff. So
if your mind has not expanded, then
Is there someone on, let me mute you guys, sorry. Thank you, just mute yourself if you've got background noise. Okay, so let me just scroll down. We're talking about movable tiny homes. We're going to talk about the certification license. Here we go. So discussions of a definition. This is a city or county just entertaining the idea of saying yes to an ANSI or NFPA, which is what we're talking about mostly. We haven't gotten to the HUD conversation yet in this conversation, but so is licensed and registered with the Department of Motor Vehicle and the unit meets ANSI A119 standards as a certified. It's funny, this doesn't say NFPA on here, but I know the ordinances that have been passed often refer to NFPA or ANSI. Am I just like missing that? So when it's your city or county looking at what you're doing, if they haven't already approved ANSI or NFPA, then you're really only down to IRC or HUD, or working with Fancy Man Contractor Dave, who's gotten, I just heard Nick on a phone call moments ago today, where cities that hadn't even been approved, the fact that you are working with a builder that provides plans and you're really educating the city as if you were to do something that would be built on site, that has been given approvals. So I want to, yeah, this just happened like today. I'm like, okay, thanks. So on some level, there's those cities that absolutely need to pass the ordinances. Some are more flexible. My sense is you're probably looking at a rural area that's a little more flex. If it's an urban area, you're going to need to go get it passed. Think of Los Angeles, for example. They had to pass this. There's no way they're going to play around with that. Versus Fresno County, which is made up of a lot of agricultural land. As long as it's submitted with the right kind of documentation, they got it approved. So that, I think, is your biggest thing, is really working with your builder of whoever they are and making sure they have plans. Not a lot of builder have plans. Talk about that, Alex. Plans.
So we are now requiring to have plans for whatever build is going, mainly because of the permitting process, but it also helps us know where everything is. The way that we conduct our inspections for most builders, we look at the product that they're building on a 10% basis. Doesn't mean that the rest of the product doesn't get inspected. It just means that for us to be able to certify a builder, we have to physically be there and see 10% of the product that they're building. Now, with all of these plans that have been getting submitted, we have the ability to communicate directly with the jurisdiction wanting to issue the permit and to be able to make their job easier and get permits approved quicker.
Yep, perfect. So anyone have any more questions about safety? I love Bernice's comment. Yes, I used to be a field inspector. I know all about handrails, steps, siding, shingles. That's great. Yay. Yeah, it's really, really important. And I have been to shows where, like, see this little window right above here, these little one right there, it doesn't open. Well, this home doesn't have a loft. The second you put a loft in, if you have a fire below you and your only out is one door, you got to go out the window, right? And you've got to have access for that. So then if your windows are little tiny things and you can't get in and out, and we would see that, I was in Fresno recently. I'm like, we were in an RV park and I looked at the tiny home and went, oh, hell no. That is danger waiting to happen, because that thing was built 5 or 6 years ago when this stuff was like the wild, wild west. Like, it's still a little bit of the Wild West because the industry is still newish, but it's not so Wild West if you at least have the information in front of you. So this is what I'm like a huge fan of, getting this information, because remember my story, right? Thankfully the egress windows were not a problem. That was not what we had a problem with, but everything else, from electrical wiring to plumbing to the axles and the tires to just the builder going out of business, really taught us a lot. And Alex was my first line of connection to someone that talked sanity. So, all right, moving right along. Any other questions? Yep.
I have a question still. So, excuse me. So I would be looking at models that are ANSI certified. So when I do go and I do talk to them And I'm coming from that vantage point that whatever, it's a park model. So it's not the land there, we're talking about 8th Street, it's not zoned as an RV park per se, but is zoned for hotel. So I'm going in, not, I don't know. I'm just gonna be creative and let them tell me no, but
Yep.
my plan is to submit it for, 8 tiny homes, but the pitch would be that they would be ANSI certified park model.
Yeah, go for it. I mean, that's the
It-
reason why they're the planning department, right? You got to come in with the plan and say, you're the planning department. Tell me what you need from me to make sure this is legit. And don't forget about contractor Dave, who I got this email an hour ago saying Fresno County, without going through all the ordinance approval, got approved for one. We're not talking multiples. That is a little different. And all because of those foundation systems. Sorry, Alex, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was gonna ask, do you mind sharing which county or which city you are looking to do this?
The city is Desert Hot Springs and the county is Riverside County in
Okay.
California.
Okay. Riverside County has been a lot more agreeable, and I have now a direct line of connection with them to see what is needed. But even if you were trying to change the zoning of a plot to be able to allow multiple ones, that should still be an easier task in some cases than getting it approved as an accessory unit, especially if it's already zoned as a commercial lot. Changing the designation from commercial, even from hotel use, to park shouldn't be. I mean, it's going to cost some money and everything, but it's doable. I actually have seen those projects go through before. And
So thinking outside the box, coming from a different point, if I were to put 4 units there, technically you can have, by state, you can have an ADU. Each one can have an ADU. I don't need 9. Because there's a house there now, and I'm going to put maybe 7 or 8. But from that point, if I were to put, say, 3 additional and have, ADUs, then that's a different way of looking at it.
it is. At that point, we would just have to talk to the county and figure out what exactly they would require for that, and how many are allowed in the specific area where you are. One of the things that I tell everyone, and Lindsay knows this, and contractor Dave knows it as well, a good relationship with him as well. Changes that you can find jurisdiction to jurisdiction go all the way down to the address where you're trying to place something. Generally, you have an order of state, county, city, HOA in some cases, and all of those changes are the ones that we need to be aware of before advising what to do. I think contractor Dave is definitely a lot better qualified to tell you what can be done at a specific address, but it's
Definitely have him
It's
in
a
your
good-
back pocket, especially with regards to these foundation systems.
yes.
He's doing so much work now in California. It's, once he does any work in one county, the good news is he's done work there. He knows people, he's talked to them, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know yet about Riverside. Hands down Fresno County, just because of this one project took a year to get approved. Well, now they've got precedents, right? It's like something legal that gets passed. And I really feel like you're doing planned unit development, there's regional housing. So, I realize you're doing a lot. So this is just one of your many projects that you're working on.
It
And
is.
going in there.
It is.
Know that you've got a team behind you if you need any support, and any builder that you get the home built by and they build with Pacific West Tiny Homes as certifier. Alex, I can almost speak for him, would be happy to, talk to a city if you need that from that certification perspective. That's
Yes.
support. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the
We
good news
definitely,
is the city of
yeah.
Riverside just got passed, so I'm not sure what's going on at the county level, but when the city just passes something, it's not like county Riverside will be like, tiny homes, what? Like, they have to know that city just passed this ordinance.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. You have a precedent on the city now. The biggest difference is the county is managed in two different sections. City of
Mhm.
Riverside being on the west side of the county, and then the desert side is managed by a different office.
Yes.
So yeah, so you'll have
And
to.
that's so crazy because another project that I'm working on for the church, and it's for shelter for the unhoused,
Mhm.
and it's in Desert Hot Springs, but it's county. Now, my property, the one I was just talking about, is the city of Desert Hot Springs. So everything would have to go through the city of Desert Hot Springs, but the church and the shelter for the homeless, that's the county of Riverside. Everything has to go through the county of Riverside. So it's so crazy.
You need a spreadsheet for that
I,
organization.
I do. I do. I need a contractor Dave's number too. He gave it to me at one of those things, and I don't know what the heck I did with it.
Well, oh, I've got you. So here, well, I'm doing much more. What I can do is do an invitation, because what we do is when I, send someone his way, we all make commissions off of each other. That's just
I'm
how
not
this
mad.
industry.
I'm not
Yeah.
mad. One bit. Yes.
Okay, so cool. I'll make a note to like connect you guys. All right, so moving on to,
Thank you.
you know,
Thanks, guys.
yeah, thank you,
No
Lakeisha. I
problem.
appreciate it. Oh, there's my email. Sorry, I didn't mean to have that there. I meant to have it all nice and tidied, but there you go. You see my world. Okay, so I'm going to present again. Let's talk about really permit ready. We've sort of touched a little bit on this. Obviously, once a city has been approved, then they're going to make sure that this certification is good to go, because the city's already been through all this. City, county has already been through, what is a tiny home? How do we define it? How is it different than an RV? In many cases, other than Portland and Oakland, they do allow recreational vehicles. So think more your fifth wheel, your motor coach, pop-up trailers, your NFPA 1192. Think more of your bigger homes, up to 10 to 12, 13 wide. Actually, I think it was a 15 wide around the country, is your ANSI park model. The tiny homes, many of them built, for road ready, go up to 8.5 wide because they're just easier to drive on the road with no permits. When you get to 10 wide, then you need a permit. But the permit we're really talking about is being able to be lived in legally. And that's so key. And it doesn't just stop there, it's also recreational vehicle parks. Meaning not necessarily needing a permit, but the fact that those parks allow for those tiny homes. So Alex, maybe you can talk a little bit about, there's permit with the city and then permit with, or at least allowable in a park.
Okay, so permit with the city. Let's use City of Los Angeles as an example. One of the first things that they are going to look at for any unit is that it has a seal that classifies it as something. In their case, City of Los Angeles is comfortable allowing an NFPA unit and ANSI units to be placed in backyards as long as they have a label from one of the approved agencies for the state, which we are one of them.
And speaking of the
Pacific West
approved, I'm
Association.
going to show the approved list right now. I have immediate access. Notice this is a very long list for the California Department of Housing and Community Development. I know that there's other people on this call that are not just in California. Every
Mhm.
state is different. In the state of
Yes.
California, this list is easily accessible. And if you notice, Pacific West is sitting right here.
Mhm.
On
So,
yeah.
and I do want to bring that up because that is one of the questions that we get quite often. We are licensed by the states that we represent to do what we do. This list that Lindsay has up means that we have gone through the vetting process from the state to be able to enforce not only for RVs and park models, but in the case of Pacific West Associates, we can also manage the manufactured housing program. I actually just received this one too. This is the certification, the permit and quality assurance inspector license that we get for the state. And I just received that one a couple days ago on my approval on this one. So what this means is that we can also manage the houses built to the HUD code. As of right now, we are seeing a lot more jurisdictions approve ANSI and NFPA because while it is a cheaper route for certification, it's also one that we can manage to the point where the jurisdictions feel safe having it. That makes it to where if you were to take it to a park, going back to the permitting and the living, if you were to take a unit like this to a park, the attendant at the park will have to make a decision whether to let the units in or not. And Lindsay has gone through this as well. Once a park attendant makes sure that the unit is not going to burn the entire property down, they can let it go in and stay for whatever predetermined amount of time they have. In places like California, you have most of the parks, RV parks and manufactured housing parks are managed by the state. In the cases where they're not, and one very visible example was Russian River campgrounds. They're a privately owned company that can make their own rules. So
Like many
even if
around the country.
oh yeah. So even if they see a certification, you know, they don't always know what they mean. So what we usually do in these cases is we will have conversations with the parks to make sure that they know what they are letting into their properties. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is also really important. Because I've traveled so much with our tiny home, I've been really well received by and large, but we have been told to leave 2 parks. And the good news is we're on a travel mode. So, okay, big deal. We're there for one night. But we never really got a clear understanding as to why. And I would say the biggest reason now, as I've, been told to leave in Texas, there was another one, Santa Rosa Fairgrounds, because it's owned by the fairgrounds. They have this sticker on the thing where it says only RVIA is allowed. And it's this little black seal. What they don't realize is that RVIA is just a certification company, but they're also an industry association. They're a very large industry association, but they're not the standard. And the amount of people that say RVIA standard, like a building standard, 100% wrong. Okay. RVIA is an industry association that certifies, just like Pacific Westwood. There are very few tiny home builders that now are RVIA certified. You'll still see them. They're kind of, if you will, they're grandfathered in. There's a few in Canada. There's some, like our buddies at Forever Tiny Homes are RVIA certified. They did that in like 14 years ago. But RVIA does not really love the tiny home world, and here's why. The RV Industry Association is about temporary living. That's what the standards are built to, for temporary living, right? So if all of a sudden the RV Industry Association hears that tiny homes are wanting to be lived in full time, and they're using the ANSI certification, we're using the standard that they've pretty much been built their entire industry to live in full time. And that sort of ruffles feathers. And oftentimes they're the ones found at many of the meetings to say no to cities or counties passing these, unless they pass an ordinance. So it just gets a little funny. I don't know, any stories you want to share there, Alex?
No, I mean, what we would say professionally is that we understand the concern that RVIA has for the type of product and the intended use that we're giving it. Because when you look at something that is supposed to be permanent living, it also becomes real property. In those cases, it gets a certificate of occupancy. In the case of product that has an ANSI or an NFPA label, it does not. It's personal property, it's not real property. Once you set a precedent that it can be taxed as real property, that becomes really difficult for the manufacturers across the country. So while we would like to see more permanent living in RV and park model certified tiny homes, we also see that can on the other hand, really damage the RV and the park model industry. We do believe that we have a need for a specific designation for our industry, which is something that the Tiny Home Industry Association has been working with in association with the International Code Council. So while we get to that point, like you said, Lindsay, we can address those concerns by having different jurisdictions do more temporary approvals. City of Riverside just approved I believe it was for ANSI certified units. City of San Diego has the same type of regulation if it's certified to ANSI. City of LA is saying that if it's certified to NFPA or ANSI, you can live in them for an extended amount of time as accessory units. Then you have City of Oakland, where you can live in them as if it for extended periods of time, even if it's the only structure on the property. So
yeah.
you have different regulations, different things that the county or the city or even an HOA can do to allow for more semi-permanent use of the units, even if there's just an RV or a park model. But the reality again is that if it's certified as an RV, you don't want to set a precedent that you can also live in them forever, because that, it damages the industry, and our industry needs its own identity. So we need to make sure that we keep that in mind and keep the work going forward.
Awesome. Oh, we have a question. Let me see. Is there a website or document that is organized and updated info on builders and to what standards they build to? I have been contacted by investors with questions regarding some tiny home builders that I've never heard of, and thus I do an immediate deep dive on researching these lesser known, perhaps, organizations. I hear you on that. I'd like to say that the Tiny Home Industry Association was 100% up to date, but there's a few, even in our state of California, that I'm like, who are they? I've never seen them at a show. And I've been to almost every show in the state of California, home and garden shows, tiny fest shows, like you name it. You tell me someone that's been to more shows than me in a calendar year, I'd like to meet them. I really do, because I don't know. But so the reality is I wish we had one website or one document. I am working on that, at least for the state of California. The reason why, just to kind of open up a little, I'll show it to you guys here. 1 second. We are launching another world. This is related. We're launching this ATHA, American Tiny House Association, not to be confused by the Tiny Home Industry Association. Think of the THIA as the lobbying group that gets an ordinance passed with the city or county. Think of ATHA as the people that come up behind after it and say, okay, let's get homeowners educated, people that own land, because we all know that the more people that have the land or the property that can get and allow a tiny home on it. Now, most of you here are in the process of developing projects, right? And that's amazing, because when you get into that, now you're usually dealing with more than just one. But what we're going to go into, San Diego, LA, I mean, there's a list of 16 now of these places around the country. Oh, growing. And also breaking news, Florida just had a monumental moment today. The state of Florida, been working on for 4 years. I was just on a board call presenting about this Go Tiny campaign that we're launching with San Diego first. So, and just to give you an understanding why, San Diego passed in 2020. 1 permit has been approved, 3 are in process, and that has all happened in the last year. So why the holdup? Now, granted, there was COVID, all that stuff, but we need 108,000 homes, just regular homes, not just regular, but just we need homes in San Diego, and only 4 in the tiny home world has been happening. So there's a gap, and usually it's education. An ordinance will get passed, there'll be a blast of news about it, and then that's it. And unless you tell people that own the properties what's possible, what they can do, very different than being, we're thinking on-site build versus off-site build. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars difference, especially in the San Diego area. You can easily be in the $300,000 for an ADU that you could pay, you know, less than 100,000 or about 100,000 with utilities and all that. So, you know, do the math there. That's why this is a real big push. Anyway, I went off on that a little bit because why did I go off on that? The website or the document that is organized and updated. We're working on a resource document that following one of these shows, we say, hey, here's your resource guide for, you want to do this yourself? Go for it. You want to hire some of the builders and some of the resources in your state? Here's the people. And we're also going to include Oregon, Washington, and to be on that resource guide, they have to be a member of THEA, because there's no reason why we'd promote, you know, THEA is the one that's been volunteer run, has been the one pushing this from the front end. Alex and I can wear multiple hats, you know, at any moment. We've been behind the scenes really helping do these ordinances and really guide this along the way. So wouldn't it be great if THEA actually got funded for all the work that we're doing, opening up markets like LA, San Diego, just tiny little towns to the south. So Florida, we have to hear, let's see, that just happened today. Shorty is the one that's working on it. Basically, there's a representative, I can't remember her name, and they've been working on this for 4 years at the DMV level to get tiny homes approved, and something just broke through today. It doesn't mean it's been legalized, but they had a 15-2 vote in favor, and in a certain committee that was really like an established committee, and now there's 2 other committees, but because it's already been through this one committee, it's very likely that it's going to go and be passed by these other 2 committees. So that's as much as I know for now. But do know good things on the horizon, the fact that there's some breakthrough. And this representative is basically, she can only work on so many bills per year. And this is one of her issues, and it's been worked on for 4 years now. I just basically told both of them, we need to do a case study on this. This needs to be documented as to like, how did this happen? What were the big milestones that have been processed? You know, you guys, this is the reality in the industry. I'll hear things because of the people I'm connected with, and then it'll go nowhere because all of us need like staff, we need more admin, we need more capital, we need more PR firms that are supporting us, the whole thing, to get the word out, but it's not there yet. So you're hearing it firsthand. Okay, back to certifications. Alex,
Yep.
any comment on that?
No, and I think we're going to see that a lot more, that as more places allow certified tiny homes to be placed within their jurisdiction, we are creating precedent for everybody else that wants to do it. And we've seen that quite a bit. Once City of Los Angeles was approved, San Diego started seriously looking at the issue and wanting to do it. A couple of weeks ago, there was a presentation that tiny homes were going to be used for emergency housing. That was actually a pretty big deal, with the governor in California making a very public announcement with a couple of people that are certified as well. So it's something that's getting a lot more attention, especially for developers, for people that just want to place them in their backyards, for investors. This is getting big. And one of the things is Lindsay has a list of people that she's working with that have received some sort of certification. I can also provide some information on that, and you'll have a contact to both of us at this point. So any questions, specifically with the comment that you sent, if you have any questions on any builders that are certified and what exactly they comply to, we'll be more than happy to inform you on that as well.
And I'll provide Alex's phone number. Is that a good one? In the and email. Okay, I'm working on that now. So the last 2 that are really the certification benefits are resale value, financing, and insurance. So which one do you want to talk about first? Resale value or financing and insure? I do financing.
See, I think all 3 of them go hand in hand. Resale value is something that we are now just finally getting concerned with, because for the first 5 to 6 years that we've been doing this, we really did not have a research market. But one of the things that we're seeing now on blogs and on tiny house listings and Facebook Marketplace is now all of these newer listings are putting in their information which company they were certified by. So that helps the resale because if it is a certified home, it should make it easier for a bank to have the confidence to finance it and for an insurance company to be able to put a policy on it. So having the certification increases the chances of all of those, which increases the resale value of the house. One of the biggest issues that we have seen for newer homes that are just getting built either by a DIY or a professional manufacturer is the financing. There's multiple companies that are able to do it, but some of them do require that the units are inspected and certified by a company like ours. In California, they do want a listed company, an HCV listed company to do that kind of work. And there are also companies that will not require a certification for either insurance or financing, but the premiums and the interest rates tend to be higher because of the higher risk. So one of the things that we have seen that helps is with companies like Mac Insurance out of Oregon, Strategic Insurance, a couple of those.
Foremost, just made sure you had to have it certified.
Yes, Foremost Insurance will give a certificate, but they do require that it comes from a certified manufacturer. They unfortunately will not work with DIYs. That being said, Mac and Strategic will, and there's other smaller companies that will. We're working with other companies on a daily basis. Like USAA is one of the ones that I have been trying to get on.
USAA actually, because I'm a USAA member, which is the military, they actually forward all their leads over to Foremost.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a USAA insurance plan. It goes right to Foremost. So when you hear USAA, think Foremost. Yep.
So, and there's multiple companies. The other thing that I want to bring up on the financing side is being a manufacturer, being a consumer. The places where we have seen the most success as far as getting a tiny home finance has been through either smaller regional banks or through credit unions. You still have all of your standard, your One Main Financials, your Lending Tree, all of these other smaller places, Lightstream being another one of them that is really prominent in the industry.
And Alex, we have a whole section on financing, just so everyone knows. There's secured consumer loan and there's unsecured consumer loan. So secured will be your Liberty Bank, your 21st mortgage. You're going to have your better interest rate. But when I say better, it's still like 8% or more. But you're going to get into those longer terms of 25 years. When it's unsecured, your Lightstream, your Hearth, your E-loan, your, all those type of loans isn't much different than walking into the bank and saying, here's my credit profile. What do you got? And they don't require any kind of, collateral or asset that's going to go against that loan. It's just what you're able to get. So on one hand, they don't require anything because they don't care. It's kind of like a HELOC loan. Do you have enough equity in your home to do a pool, to do a lane, to do a deck, to do a hot tub? Sure. To buy a tiny home, they're not requiring as much. But when you get into loans that are going to relate to 21st or Liberty, they're going to secure that asset and they're going to make sure it's certified. One thing I just found an image, this is great. So notice this is tinyhomebuilders.com. This is many websites out there like Tiny House Listings, Certified Luxury. It's going to talk about ANSI certification in the actual, there we go. These first two, certified. We did not see this type of stuff years ago. So very easy, when someone sends me a little link and I don't even see the word certified in the actual title of the name of the sale of the home, I already immediately am suspicious that it's not certified. Because if it was, then you'd put it in the name. Because nowadays they are. Notice this next one, beautifully furnished. Well, is it certified? I don't know. And then if you go into it, I mean, maybe it'll say it. I've never looked at this, so I don't know. It's
That was
pre-owned.
totally incredible.
That was, I noticed Tennessee, yeah. Not all of them are. I don't know. So you'd have
Correct.
to really follow up to make sure that that was certified. Hopefully that helps.
One of the things that we do offer is if you need to know if your builder is certified, always give us a call. We're more than happy to provide that information.
And
Make
there's
sure
a
of
question
which.
about HUD too. We can chat about in a moment. If there's any more questions about ANSI and NFPA specifically. Before we move on to a national standard, I want to kind of help our brains a little bit with understanding all these standards. So any other questions on your NFPA, your ANSI? Think your movable tiny house is often are the words that kind of slang about it, or slang. Tiny home on wheels, a THO. I heard one recently, a MADU, movable ADU.
Mm.
There's 69 names for ADUs, like cottage house, granny unit, you know. So if you can imagine, this is why I say tiny home is a marketing term. There are
Yes.
4 types of standards that will not change unless we have another type that all of a sudden comes into play. So moving along into something else I heard today from Nick directly. Drum roll, please. Alex, does this have anything to do with you involved?
Probably not.
Okay, it doesn't. Well, he did get approved. He is
Yes.
now HUD certified. That is this home behind me. But tell us a little bit more about your HUD certification as a certifier.
So HUD certification means that it is a unit that is intended to be lived in full time. You will get a certificate of occupancy, and placing should not be that difficult. Most jurisdictions, especially in a state like California that has an emergency declaration for housing, will allow you to place a HUD certified property, HUD certified product within their jurisdiction. There are a few things that have to be complied with. This, because this is a permanent structure, you're going to go through planning and zoning and everything, which I think one of the best resources for that is Contractor Dave. But the home itself is, they can be built to the same quality as a movable tiny home. Just because it says manufactured house doesn't mean that it's doesn't always mean that it's lower quality or less livable than what we would call at this point a traditional movable tiny house.
I always say it's not your grandma and grandpa's manufactured home anymore.
Yes.
But some builders are going to only build to the very basic. Can you tell me, because I know R3 insulation is what an ANSI can go as low as. Now, I do
Correct.
not want an R3. That's the same as your little, my RV that I'm sitting in here right now. I'm getting a little cold. What is a HUD? Like, what is the insulation standard for HUD?
It will vary a little bit depending on the zone that you're going to place it. Manufactured house, just like a residential home, you want to make sure that you're going to be able to withstand the weather where it's going to be placed.
Gotcha. Okay, so zoning. Now, what's interesting, the manufactured home industry is largely going to be building about 700 square feet or more. And they can go as low as 320. That's the beauty there. So we got this weird gap between 320 and about 700. Funny enough, that is pretty much, I've asked so many audiences, I can guarantee you, this is the area that's most comfortable for most people that want to go tiny. They want to go lower than 1,000. They probably go a little bit more than 200, unless you're getting into the tiny tinies. Then you're definitely in the ANSI and the NFPA. You're not going to be into HUD, right? Think 320 or more. Now, between the 320 and 400 is where you've got HUD at 320, and 400 is when the park models maxes out. So you've got this other sweet spot, this overlap. Well, this home right behind me is 320 square feet starting. They can go, this is a 32 long, 10 wide, makes for a really nice, environment inside when you get that 10-foot wide. It has the wheels. It's put up on, metal adjustable piers and considered as a permanent home. And yet we see it as a tiny home, right? Yet tiny homes are
So what's
considered.
so what's the difference then, Lindsay? Because I'm thinking about that for the Whitewater project. I have
It's the stamp on the side of the home.
Does the price, does the price, is it a thing with the price? Does that make a difference?
It won't be
It could be.
It won't be 20K.
It could be. So the biggest difference between those three types of actually all of the units that you're looking at on what you would consider a traditional tiny house at this point is the stamp that they're going to get. The RV and NFPA, I'm sorry, the NFPA and the ANSI stamp are going to be the same. They do, by definition on the code, get a temporary recreational designation for its occupancy, where a HUD unit doesn't. That one actually will get you a certificate of occupancy, which you can use as a dwelling, as a permanent dwelling. Same thing with units that are built to factory built housing standards, which is the local construction code. So in California, they will be certified to California Building Code. The biggest difference for us will be the frequency of inspections for these types of units.
Okay.
For, as I mentioned, for the ANSI and NFPA, we have to physically be there to inspect 10% of the product. For HUD and for CBC or factory built units, we have to be there for every single unit. For every step of the way, we have to see their plumbing, their mechanical, their structure, their electrical, life safety, the same things that we check for every other structure, but for every single unit. Physically be there to do the inspection. So it does change the price, which is what drives up the price for the manufacturer.
Yep. But you can place it.
Exactly.
National standard.
And that also,
back to the R value, like given zones and all that, how low have you, like we're in Arizona, obviously you got heat when you don't have cold.
So on the RV and the park model code, it is the same throughout the country. It doesn't matter whether you're in Alaska or you're in California. You have a minimum R5 in the walls and 7 in the ceilings and floor.
Oh my God.
Which is nothing.
Don't do it.
One of the things that we are seeing though is as we certify multiple different builders, you have, I don't think we have a single one that just does an R5 or an R7. And because they are more involved in the custom building process, they will ask you where you're going to place a home. So a house that is going to go into Colorado is going to have an R23 on the walls and higher in the ceiling and floors. But the same house, even from the same manufacturer, can be, have an R13 or an R17 if you're going to place it down in Texas. So those are the differences that we have seen.
And Lakeisha, a big difference, materials. If you want to buy a home that's really inexpensive, I've just heard of someone like, oh, we picked up these, 50-foot manufactured homes for $30,000. I'm like, I bet you did. And I do not think it's going to have shiplap and it's going to have thick walls and it's going to have, all the materials and the bells and whistles that this industry does. And this is where the big kind of pricing challenges come from. Because oftentimes you'll hear people like, oh my God, that unit's 400 square feet. It's 12 wide. We just had one at Tiny Fest and I brought people through that. That was the same price, $70,000. No, it was 120 as the little one I was offering at Mendo Tiny Homes. But that one had drywall and this one had shiplap and that one had, basic floors and this one had radiant floor heating and that one had you know, a 50-gallon water tank and this one had an on-demand, you know, so it's just there's the comparison of materials is
Yeah.
so key. And it's all about upkeep and maintenance, right? You buy a car now, depends on how much you put into it, how much you're going to have to fix it later. All these homes are going to take, you know, repairs, shingle roof versus standing seam, right? Metal siding versus wood.
And
Yeah,
there's,
someone I know bought one at the Tiny Fest for 25,000. I personally wouldn't have bought it, but whatever. That's, you know,
Yeah.
I walked through it and was like, okay.
yeah,
It's to each his
that's one of,
own. What are your goals? What do you want to do? What is your budget? You know, I
Yeah.
appreciate not everyone's got the budget. That's why the boneyard build and the, you know, what do you call it? Incrediboxes are going gangbusters for people because they give them a roof over their head. They're a good, beautiful unit, paint it the right color, and off and on you go. And then there's people that buy the $250,000 tiny home. I've talked to 4 builders that have built those size of homes because they just want the level of materials. So
yeah,
that's
I
a fun
think,
conversation. And in the pricing finance module, FYI, I do a whole review of prices over from 2020 when I started doing the research till pretty much now, or early 2023, and seeing how the
Mhm.
prices also have gone up for materials.
mhm. Yeah, and you're gonna see a lot of differences on all of these. You know, you have, like you said, the $25,000 tiny home, the Incrediboxes. You know, those can still be made safe. They can still be certified, just as much as I can certify one that is $250,000. But in this industry, what we've been seeing a lot is that these are meant to be, you know, 25-year houses,
Yeah.
where most HUD houses are 10 years or less, where, you know, you're going to start seeing things fail. You will, you know, in general, it's just the appliances are what starts going first. You will have some manufacturers that will put a really cheap mini split air conditioning unit on their homes, and you can see problems 1 or 2 years in. Or you can see some a unit from Mitsubishi or LG that will not give you any problems for 15 years unless it's abused. You will see products like water heaters that this goes back to the type of certification that you're looking at. For products that we certify, we require them to be listed and tested for the use that you're giving. So approved for RV, as we mentioned at the beginning of the call. Like Lindsay said, these products are something that gets it gets tested in a laboratory and they will destroy it. For water heaters, they will shake them until they break apart to try to simulate the use that they're going to be getting on the road. You know, so one of the processes that we go through is approving all of those materials, all of those appliances that are going to be part of the tiny home. And we do that both for manufacturers and for DIYs. That way we can keep a little bit of a higher level of safety when it comes to materials and appliances that you're going to see.
I do want to make a comment. Thank you, Bernice. Thank you, Alex, for that explanation about manufactured homes and the sort of wear and tear on appliances and just the wall structure and all of that, you know, because I keep my mouth shut as to what I personally like. I definitely have my own favorites. And much to like Bernice's comment, you know, if I have to spend 250,000 on a tiny house, I might as well buy a regular house. What's interesting is when we say regular, that also means a bigger size. As someone who just literally walked away from 1,900 square feet, you also have to perpetually heat and cool that home. You will always have more costs involved with heating and cooling a bigger home than you will a smaller home. Now, when we say prices like these are crazy, 250,000, one of my builders told me, a friend of mine, Lou, the client wanted a $5,000 coffee maker. Okay. So to each their own. If you want to put, you know, a steam room shower and a sauna and all the bells and whistles. This is also where we get into, I know we're not talking about solar here. When people talk about solarizing or off-gridding a tiny home, if you had, you know, the steam room and the sauna and all, you just have a smaller space, but you may still have the same appliances that you have in a regular home. You may not be heating and cooling the amount of space that you would with a bigger home, but your energy load could be more with a tiny home than with a regular house. It all depends on what you're putting in that home. So it doesn't necessarily mean space, but space will predominantly relate to lower material prices as long as you're not buying gold toilets and $5,000 coffee machines.
We've
Right?
seen it.
It's totally possible. All of it's possible. It's just a matter of like what we're looking for. So I see that we're a little bit past time, the hour. Anyone have questions? Thank you, Lakeisha, for popping in.
Thank
Any
you.
more questions with Alex? I'll put his information in the chat here to contact him about tiny homes. If you have any builders you're talking to, they want to get into building, have them reach out to me because I'm an affiliate. You will get Alex and me. If you want to talk to Alex directly, of course. But if you're sending any DIYers or builders their way, have them talk to me first because they'll just get more time with me plus Alex. Yay, or try LG or Mitsubishi. Yeah, good manufacturer for mini splits. Yep. Good one. I need to get them in my showcase. Come on. LG, Mitsubishi, a big name. I'm ready for it. Awesome. Yes, Mr. Cool. We did put ours in. I will talk a little bit about Mr. Cool. Could do a whole talk on that. It comes with a set line, and that line, if that doesn't work for your design and you have to get it cut. Well, then you have to spend the amount of money to get the thing cut and get the whole thing recharged. So you just have to make sure the DIY Mr. Cool is possible because we had to coil up that line and that really reduced. And I also don't feel like it's super powerful. It might be that we're undersized or I don't know. I don't love it. So that's my only personal experience with Mr. Cool in regards to that. Was it cheap? It was $800 and we had to do it ourselves. We still had to hire an electrician to wire it. We did not do that on our own.
And
So
if you have issues with the pre-charge on those mini splits, you'll end up paying an HVAC specialist anyways. So
yeah, you might as well get a good one to have a HVAC person install it to the exact place. And here's a newsflash. Do not put it at the end of a home or inside of a room and you think that you're going to heat or cool another room with a doorway in the middle, a door in the middle. You're going to need another mini split. It will not work through a door.
one of the things too that I do want to mention is for a lot of people that are building their own homes, yes, there's a lot of work that you can do, but please check on the products that you're using, because one of the complaints that I have heard about a lot of the materials and a lot of the appliances is if you install it yourself, you will void the warranty. So please do your research on all of that, and that should be mini splits, stoves, water heaters, all of these things. If a professional, a licensed professional is not doing it, you will possibly void the warranty. And it is a very high expense to get a $2,500 Mitsubishi LG unit for it to fail because something went wrong or, a factory defect that you can no longer claim. So that part of the education is something that we want to make sure that everybody has. And, for DIYs and for manufacturers, if we need to check on the product, we'll be more than happy to do that.
Yes, do it before. I paid way too much money for 2 heaters to get the right one. Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex, for your time talking about certifications. So safely built, resale value, financing, insurance, and permit ready is why certifications are so important for your tiny home to be your dream home.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lindsay,
Thank
for having me.
you.